Good morning. This is a meeting of the Aeronautics Commission on Wednesday. I have to take a look at my watch today, July 14th. It's now 10:01. Let's get the meeting started. I call it to order. Would you please call the order and record members present?
First Congressional District Commissioner Kevin Potter.
Here.
Second Congressional District Commissioner David Conway.
Here.
Third Congressional District Commissioner Charles Ortega.
Here.
Fourth Congressional District Commissioner Lindsey Ritz. Fifth Congressional District Commissioner Blake Rainey.
Here.
At-large Commissioner Chairman Jim Putnam.
Here.
At-large Commissioner Jerry Hunter.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
All right. Okay, we now need to take a look at the minutes of the past commission meeting. They're in our folders here. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes from the previous meeting? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval of those minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Call the vote, please.
Commissioner Potter.
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Abstain.
Commissioner Ortega.
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey.
Aye.
Chairman Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, now let's get on to something that's pretty fun. Grayson, would you take over the recognition of former commissioners, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here today. We have a couple of distinguished guests who happen to be sitting where you were not just too long ago, serving the aviation aerospace community for many years and doing some good business for the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission. And we wanted to recognize them today and present them with a parting gift, and I believe the governor has given them a commendation as well. I know you all know these gentlemen pretty well, but for the benefit of the public, I wanted to read a little bio from the two gentlemen that are sitting in the audience, Commissioner Dave Amos and Commissioner Michael Ray. We'll start off with Commissioner Dave Amos. He was appointed to the Aeronautics Commission in 1996 by Governor Keating and was reappointed again by Keating, then by Governor Henry, and lastly by Governor Fallon. Served for 24 years on the commission, 4 full terms. Was chairman 4 times. High-paying position, right, Commissioner? He has been in aviation aerospace for many, many years. He could talk about himself much better than I could, but has about 40 years of aviation aerospace experience, graduated from Oklahoma State University with his Bachelor of Science in Engineering Technology. He's a licensed pilot, over 2,700 hours total time, instrument rated, commercial rated, owns a Cessna 182 right now. What year is that? 99 182. He's been traveling around the state. I've seen him on Facebook and at several events, and he's been enjoying it. He's enjoying his 182 and his time flying around. He's got a consulting firm called Vector Air that he does a lot of aircraft consulting. He is the king for knowledge when it comes to aircraft sales and moving aircraft transactions. I know for many years myself and former director Vic Bird would call upon his expertise in the aircraft sales market and aircraft sales business to help us out, whether or not we were going to get the next big check from somebody buying a large business jet. So he helped us forecast the market and did a pretty good job at that. So without further ado, Commissioner Amos, why don't you come forward and let you say a few things if you'd like to say something, and then Mr. Secretary Gatz, if you want to come down, we'll present.
Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman. Pulled up in the parking lot a while ago and somebody's in my parking spot. Got a little problem with that. No. Welcome to my seat, Commissioner Rainey. It's been a true honor for 24 years to sit up there and administer the public dollars and to all the airports in the state. And it's been an honor and a pleasure and some wonderful life experiences that I'll always remember, and thank you all.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, this is a commendation on behalf of Governor Kevin Stitt. recognizing Dave for his 25 years of dedicated service to the Aeronautics Commission. This is in appreciation and congratulations. So on behalf of the governor, Dave, we very much appreciate the time and attention that you have given, not just to the Aeronautics Commission, but to aerospace and aviation in the state of Oklahoma, and the part that you've played in making it everything that it is today and putting it on a firm footing for the future. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And in honor of that, we have a beautiful light, runway light in action, in service for over 20-plus years to match your 20-plus years of service.
Okay.
And I did not work out yesterday. I needed to. This thing's got some weight behind it, so be careful. Yeah, I wasn't kidding. So,
So what airport did it come from?
I believe that was Chickasha? Yep.
Chickasha. I've
Chickasha
been there.
Airport. So, we could maybe take a picture up front. Commissioners, if you want to.
You wanna come on down?
Whatever your preference.
I do want to say that, and all of the pilots in here can understand this, how sometimes our wives are confounded by the things that we do. And so I'm going to take this home and present this to her and tell her this is going to be our new dining room table fixture.
Okay, everybody, here we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Amos. I appreciate all the service that you've given us and the guidance and expertise. I remember as a young intern how you told me about everything you'd been involved in for aviation. It was quite awe-inspiring and really helped me lead my career in the direction that it has gone. So thank you personally from me for that. The next gentleman, Commissioner Michael Ray, was appointed to the commission by Governor Brad Henry and reappointed by Governor Fallon. He served from 2011 to 2020. Served one term as the chairman of the commission. He is the owner and managing partner of 5R Companies, a diverse agricultural business, and he's listed all the different things that he's been involved in. But if it's involving agriculture, Michael Ray has been involved in it. He more recently has been the president of the Oklahoma School Board Association, and I know he's been very excited about aviation aerospace education during his term on the Aeronautics Commission and doing so many great things for schools throughout the state of Oklahoma. He also has some pretty neat airplanes in his fleet. He owns a Turbine Bonanza, which is a turbine single-engine airplane. That's my goal. That at some point in time in my life I want to get there. So I'm going to ask you, Commissioner, how you got there, and maybe try and get some words of wisdom. He also is type rated in their Cessna 425. Received his degree from New Mexico State University. Received an Animal Science Distinguished Service Award for his company and his company's efforts from Oklahoma State University, and is a member of the Spur Honor Society for Texas Tech University. He and his wife live in Guyman, Oklahoma, in our panhandle, and every time we go out to Guyman, we make sure to visit Commissioner Ray and see how the panhandle is doing. It's a nice spot of land out there, and we don't forget about it. We don't forget about the panhandle. Commissioner Ray, why don't you come up?
You haven't come to the Panhandle very often.
I haven't. I have sent staff there very frequently, though.
Yes, you have. I really enjoyed my time on the committee. I enjoyed getting to know a lot of you guys. And Blake, I was like, man, who's the young guy? I thought they only put people that are like 70 or older. But I was surprised that Mr. Amos retired. I thought God appointed you to the. I only served as chairman one time because Dave always was. He's like, I need to be chairman one more time before I retire. And he's like, he retired over a long period of time. But I enjoyed it. I appreciate it. I appreciate all that you do, and appreciate what you do, especially for the airports in the Panhandle. So it's been good.
So, thank you, Commissioner.
And likewise, Commissioner Ray, very much appreciate the service that you've provided to the Aeronautics Commission, State of Oklahoma, and on behalf of Governor Stitt, congratulations and appreciation for that service and your dedication to aerospace and aviation in the state of Oklahoma. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And also at Chickasha Municipal Airport runway light.
I think I hit one of these.
Well, keep that in your airplane. If you ever hit one, you can just give it to the airport manager as
No,
compensation.
if your CG's out of place,
There you
can
go.
just move this line.
Move that around, yeah. And give you some space.
Okay.
Thank you. Let's-
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm telling you, I should have done some bicep curls this morning before I came.
Certainly well-deserved recognition for some stalwarts. Item 5, Transportation Modernization Initiative Draft Final Report. Grayson and Mr. Wadsworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you saw in the email that you received on June 18th from Secretary Gatz, the over year-long initiative that we've talked about transportation modernization and modernizing the transportation cabinet, it was a long and very rewarding effort. Personally, I learned a lot about transportation in general, and seeing what our brethren do here at the Department of Transportation, seeing what our brethren do at the Turnpike Authority, and really what this kind of gave us ideas for is how can we share services at OAC to enhance our mission, enhance what we're doing here as an agency to better serve the citizens of Oklahoma. We've been sharing services with ODOT OTA since it was cool to share services. A testament to that is what we're doing here today in the Transportation Buildings Commission Room. We've been meeting here for many, many years before I was even around as a member of the organization. The Visual Studios team, which is now part of the Strategic Communications team for the cabinet, has helped us put on these meetings. Since Sandra's been here, we now record the meetings, and they are up on our YouTube channel. So yes, commissioners, you are YouTube famous, thanks to what we do and what we share in terms of our services. The list can go on, but the information that we received out of this Transportation Modernization Initiative will pay many dividends for years to come on how we can share other services that we haven't been sharing in the past, how we can tap into the big brother, big sister organization to better serve the aviation aerospace constituency. And it was under the leadership of Secretary Gatz, who had this plan and idea probably going back more than just 18 months ago, 24 months, maybe 5 years, who knows. But he's had this vision to bring the cabinet together to be able to share resources and better partner together and make sure that we have what we need, while also making sure that we have the identity that we have attained over the last 20 years as an agency. So it's been good. It's never going to quit. I think that's the one thing Secretary Gatz will always tell you. Modernization, now that we've started it, it's always going to happen. There's never going to be a time where we aren't looking to modernize and be more efficient and be more effective in our missions every single day. And so there's several near-term benefits. The Strategic Communications Initiative, I believe some of you all met Jessica Brown this morning, who's the new head of, I like to call it STRATCOM because, you know, I'm a military guy, easier to say it, a little STRATCOM, but Strategic Communications. And she's helping us out, spread the message and tell the story of aviation aerospace. In doing so and helping Sandra and sharing the message, the good word, as we like to call it, of air evangelism. Yes, I still use that term from time to time. So spreading the good message and the good word of air evangelism and helping us tell that. So, Ms. Secretary, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but I would certainly let you do that. And then Chris, if there's something you want to come up here and say, you're welcome to do so as well.
Mr. Chairman, the thing that I would do, and I'll talk a little bit more in the next agenda item about the modernization effort, but the thing I want to do for the commission is tell you how thankful I am to have Grayson serving in the role he's in, and him and Chris really stepped up. And this modernization effort, again, it's been, you know, a year-long initiative. And, of course, now we're to the beginning of the beginning as we begin to implement some of the component pieces of it. But the effort and the over and above work that Chris and Grayson did as part of that group is greatly appreciated on my part. You guys did tremendous work, and again, we have an opportunity here that's quite unique in state government to really do some things, I think, that's going to change us operationally, organizationally, and from the standpoint of just how we embrace the future differently than we've ever had the opportunity to do before. So they've been a part of that. They've helped create what we've got today, and again, I want to thank you two gentlemen for all that you put into it, because again, it's been over and above their real jobs that they do every day. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. It has been time-consuming, but it's been a rewarding, time-consuming task because of the learning and the experience we've gotten out of the deal. And really just the relationships, meeting the folks at ODOT, although, yes, we were doing this during a pandemic, and it was an experience doing it during a pandemic, but we got to know a lot more people at ODOT in the areas of expertise that they bring to the table and how they can help serve our aviation aerospace constituents. Chris, did you have anything to add or want to say anything from your perspective?
I may just mention a few of the specific recommendations that I think will really benefit us. We're looking at a cabinet-wide HR and IT services. I think that allows us to tap into the expertise that ODOT and OTA have in those areas and really expand our knowledge base and efficiencies. We're also looking at centralizing payroll, have ODOT process that for us instead of paying OMES to do that. And then a cabinet-wide audit group that, again, that expertise that we don't necessarily have on staff at the level that they can do it. The experts at ODOT and OTA can help us out with that. It's certainly never bad to have extra eyes on the audit functions of the agency. So just a few of the areas. I think there will be a lot more. Again, this is a long-term initiative. It's going to take time. I'm sure there's going to be refinement along the way, but I do think it will help us to be more efficient, innovative than what we currently are on our own.
Commissioners, I'll stand for any questions of myself or Chris or Secretary Gatz.
I think it was long overdue and very, very welcome. I know it was hard work, and I thank you and the governor very, very much for doing what needs to be done.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right.
Okay, we'll move on to next, recognition of the Transportation Cabinet at the Governor's Leadership Summit. Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, a few things about modernization and kind of where we got our start. Again, I can point to it pretty easy. I've been involved in some component piece of transportation for 31 years. So partly with the Department of Transportation, partly with Turnpike Authority. Certainly seen a lot of evolution during that time period. But this really got started when Governor Stitt came into office with a business mindset. And one of the first conversations that I had the opportunity to have with the governor was related to serving in the capacity that I currently serve in as a cabinet secretary in 2 directorships. So I'm still the director of Turnpike Authority, still the director of the Department of Transportation. That was something that he felt very strongly about. And it was something I was a little bit tentative about, quite frankly, whenever we first started, because it put me into a role where the last thing that I want to do is underserve the agencies that I represent. But it's worked out very well, and again, I appreciate his vision for what that possibility could be. And so we've built on that. That's where this conversation about the Transportation Cabinet started. And as we've worked on modernization, and to Grayson's point, about the time that we And we couldn't do this ourselves, so we brought in a third-party consultant. They're called Guidehouse. They do organizational work and development work globally. So great company. They were doing some work at the cabinet level anyway. We were able to capitalize on that. So we brought a third party in, took a deep dive into the operations of each individual agency. And the transportation cabinet, quite frankly, we're all in the transportation business, whether it's aviation, aerospace, whether it's rubber tire transportation on turnpikes or highways, transit services. So we're all doing a lot of the same work in the same space. So as we engaged with Guidehouse, they did what they called a current state assessment, did a deep dive into our operations. That took, 6 or 8 months, and really the effort that went into that. They analyzed 1,000 documents. They did a bunch of interviews, hundreds of them, with our people. So because that old adage, if you want to know where you're going, you better understand where you came from. So we needed to understand how we were operating today before we could make solid recommendations for how we want to operate in the future. From that current state assessment has come this recommendations report. Chris highlighted a few of the areas that we're going to focus on, but when you boil it down, we have a transportation cabinet that's relatively simple in the context of state agencies and state government. We've got some cabinet areas that have got 30 or 40 different boards, commissions, agencies, things that report up to them. We're fortunate. We're pretty narrowly focused, and therefore it would seem logical, especially from a business mindset, that there might be some opportunities for us to share services, begin to blend our organizational structures, and support each other. And that's what modernization is about. And again, that's with an eye to the future. Some of the things that we're going to do can take effect very quickly. Some are going to take longer. One of the recommendations is to take a hard look at the districting, especially with the Department of Transportation, and it's a reduction from 8 districts down to 5. Well, that's set in law, so that'll require the review and support of the legislature and certainly the governor. So that's a longer-term initiative that's going to take years to work through. But there are some near-term things that we can do and will do that will result in immediate savings to the folks that we work for, and that's the taxpayers, and increase and enhance the efficiencies of our operations. As Grayson points out, we've always worked together pretty closely, but we're going to take that to the next level now and really begin to realize, I think, some efficiencies. We're going to realize, more than anything else, capabilities in our organizations that we haven't had before. Everybody brings something to the table that we can share to enhance and improve the total operation of the cabinet. And again, we've got a mind and an eye towards making sure that we retain the identity of the agencies. So the Aeronautics Commission, the Transportation Commission, and the Turnpike Authority, it's very important, because even though we can blend our organizational structure and share services, the function of each individual agency has got to be retained. We've got to be careful that we don't lose some of the uniqueness and some of the responsibility and roles that each agency has. So we're mindful of that. But again, the reason I'm here in this particular agenda item is that as this work has culminated, and as Grayson pointed out, we started this a year ago, a little over a year ago, right in the face of a pandemic, and it's been challenging to do this virtually, but it's also been exciting. And about the time that we got our final report put together and everybody understood what we had accomplished and where we were headed, the Transportation Cabinet was recognized, all 3 agencies, by the governor. And we were presented at a leadership summit here earlier, or in June, with an award that only 7 agencies in government received. Ours was for efficiency and some of the things that we're doing and some of the things that we're about to do with modernization. So, again, talk about immediate recognition of something that we've all put a lot of time and effort into over the course of the last year. That was well received by our folks. We had a good group of the agency representatives at the Leadership Summit to receive the award, as you see on the screen here. And again, we very much appreciated the governor's recognition of our efforts and look forward to what the future is going to hold for us. I think you will be very pleased with the direction that we go in. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission or yourself may have, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I appreciate that. It sounds like you're off to a good start and got good recognition for it.
We were very excited, you know, to again report out, have everybody gain a little bit of understanding of what we have accomplished, and kind of the direction we're headed in. Again, that was as hard as the staff worked, they deserved that recognition, and we've put a lot of effort into this, so pretty exciting.
Super. It's always a bit disconcerting to the working level folks too, what's going to happen to them and that kind of thing. So handling that gracefully is a real skill.
Yeah. And it's
Sounds like you pulled it off.
change management is and will continue to be a big part of this because, again, there's anxiety associated with change. And we'll continue to, you know, we've done a ton of outreach, tried to keep everybody up to speed with what's going on. But again, you know, from an organizational perspective, this makes too much sense. You know, these are things that we should have done a long time ago. For whatever reason, we haven't. But now we've got an opportunity. We've got the support of Governor Stitt and his administration behind us, and we're looking forward to what's going to happen. So good things to come.
Sounds like a happy marriage. All right. Any good questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Secretary. We really appreciate you coming today.
Appreciate the opportunity this morning.
Grayson, you got somebody new to introduce.
I do. Unfortunately, she is out ill today. Otherwise, I wish she'd be here and you could meet her. But it's our wonderful summer intern, Shan, from Oklahoma State University. Been with us for about a month now, Nick, is that right? So she's going to stay with us through the rest of the summer semester, and we'll obviously go back off to college in mid-August and finish up her final semester before she graduates in the fall of this year. So wonderful to have her on board. We've been taking her out to airports, seeing the inspection side of the house, taking her through the rest of the airport division's duties and getting her fully integrated with what we do and hopefully get her the full experience of what the agency means to the aviation aerospace industry here in Oklahoma. So she would say if she's going to come back, she might try and come back for the August meeting. If not, she might try and come back for one of our meetings the rest of the year. She apologizes for being out ill today. So
Do you know what her major is?
she is aviation management, non-flying.
Non-flying with an emphasis in aerospace security.
So-
Okay.
And I know she's very involved in the AAE Association, student chapter of AAE, which is the American Association of Airport Executives. I think that's where she has her heart and mind maybe set, is on the airport side of the business. So that's one of the reasons I think why we ended up selecting her.
Indeed.
Okay. Well, now's your chance to sing, Grayson. Director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It has been a busy couple of months since we met in May. I thought after the legislative session things might quiet down, but no, they have not. We have continued on the same trajectory that we were on this spring and doing lots of events and experiencing a lot of great things in aviation aerospace that we have to talk about today. I believe, Sandra, there's some pictures that'll be rolling through your screen so you can see all the things that we have been to. The MACA fly-in, the mid-air collision avoidance fly-in at Altus Air Force Base. I know Commissioner Rainey was there with a young gentleman who flew in his Air Coupe, correct? And so had a good turnout there. Just basically this was kind of an opportunity to get pilots and the base and the Air Force together to discuss how best to go about avoiding collisions, mid-air collisions, since we all share the same airspace for training purposes out in western Oklahoma. Great event. Next, we have the Sooner to Space event featuring Administrator Bridenstine. As you know, he was the NASA administrator under President Trump's administration. Great speaker, very passionate guy about space, but also just about aviation, aerospace in general. Long history, long distinguished service for aviation and the industry, and got to hear him talk. And General Lee Levy, who I think a lot of you all know, former commander at Tinker Air Force Base, was the gentleman that introduced him. And so, great event. It was one of the first events that we had where all the aviation aerospace folks were together in the same room in person, and that felt good. It really did feel pretty good. We have some more slides, Sandra? Not yet, okay. Followed that with the Mint Turbines 40th anniversary celebration and reception. For those of you that don't know, Mint Turbines is in Stroud, Oklahoma, right there at the airport. They do a lot of work on PT6 engines, which we all know is the most popular turboprop engine, but also several other engines for both civilian and DoD work. And they've been a great story. I remember I was only a couple of years into the agency when we went to their big reception, their big grand opening of the new building they have out there. I think it was in 2011 or 12. And they've been a company that's been doing great things. They're one of those small niche companies in Oklahoma that are spread all across the state. CTS in Bristow, ASIC in Enid, GAMI and Ada, that really bring the fabric of the aviation aerospace industry together. And Mint Turbines is a great company. Employ many people in the town of Stroud, city of Stroud, probably one of the best paying jobs you can have there in the city. And working with them, you'll hear us talk about Stroud a little bit later in another presentation. So great things happening at Stroud. Follow that on with the Aviators Ball at the Tulsa Air and Space Museum. Thank you, Commissioner Potter, for attending that with us. Had a ball there. I guess I need to keep my day job. Okay, a couple obligatory laughs there. Thank you. Appreciate that. Special guest astronauts John Harrington, Fred Hayes, Charlie Duke, and of course the favorite son of Oklahoma, General Tom Stafford. It was a good panel. That was one of the best panels that I've seen in some time talk about aviation aerospace there in the Tulsa Air and Space Museum. We also had Rosemary Russa, who's the daughter of Apollo 14 astronaut Stuart Russa, and Jerry Griffin, NASA flight director during the Apollo programs. And that was a presentation to remember. Just hearing the stories of the things that went wrong and how'd they fix them, or the things that went really well, or the things that we never saw as the general public, and how close they were to death or destruction or just total tragedy at some of the points during the space program, and how that catapulted aviation aerospace and the industry forward for not only Oklahoma specifically, but for the country, for the world, and all the things that we have to say thank you for because of the space program and the research that went into all the space flying that went on. So also had Representative Crosswhite Hayter, Commissioner Mark Harder, Kevin Potter and his wife, Sandra Shelton and Paula Keaty, and of course myself and my fiance were there. So it was a great event, good turnout, and look forward to having that again in the future. So we went to the Stroud Municipal Airport again for a planning meeting to discuss all things airport. What do they need to do to really catapult their airport in the next 20 years? Because they have an opportunity out there, especially with Mint Turbines being on the facility, to bring in a lot of turboprop aircraft, to repair the engines right there at the airport. Right now, everything they do is they ship everything in. It's all shipped in on truck, and they get their engines in boxes and carts, but I know they have a future vision of potentially bringing in aircraft, taking engines off the aircraft, putting new engines on, and the aircraft will get out, and they'll do the major rehabs or the total overhauls of those engines while they're there. And so really good time to be in Stroud, and we're trying to get them a runway extension, as that's in the current airport construction program that you all had approved, and what are some of the other things that they need to do to step and put their best foot forward to really help the Stroud, but also just the Turnpike area. If you look at the different airports we have along the Turnpike between Oklahoma City and Tulsa, Chandler, Stroud, Bristow, it's all growing. It's all growing, and it's really doing pretty well in terms of economic development. So that's only going to continue to get better as more growth happens and more expansion of the metro areas occurs. We had the Shepherd Air Force Base Spring Regional Development Alliance meeting. As you all know, we have really grown close to Shepherd Air Force Base over the years based on our effort and work on the military training airspace. I know Commissioner Ortega knows that very well. Shepherd Air Force Base has a lot of routes that come into Oklahoma, and they were the owner of the route, the infamous route in western Oklahoma that caused the big problem that we had back in 2017, 2018, 2019 that really catapulted our efforts on military training airspace and protecting it with the Title 17 regulations. General Kenyon Bell, who happened to be a colonel, who was the Air Base Wing Commander here at Tinker, moved on to Shepherd. That was his next post after Tinker. And this was General Bell's, who he got a star promotion when he moved down there. This was his last meeting at that post before he moves on to his next post. And I got to tell you, I'm a big fan of General Bell's. He's a mover and a shaker. He's going to be doing some really good things for the Air Force for hopefully many years to come. And we loved him here in Oklahoma. Hopefully maybe he gets to come back to Oklahoma at some point in time in the future. But that was a good meeting. Everybody was glad to see us. We reported out on our OMA Camp project, our military training airspace mapping project, and everybody was glad to hear what we were doing to support military airspace in the state of Oklahoma. Paula Keaty and I filmed with Nick Coleman, who I think you all know and approved a small filming opportunity for pre-pandemic, and we are just now getting to it. In fact, he still couldn't make it to the United States in person, so we had to hire a crew here, and we remotely videotaped an interview for this film that we hope is going to be previewed at Oshkosh here in a couple of weeks. And so really what this is just talking about the history of aviation aerospace in Oklahoma and how passionate and how diverse the industry is, and what can we do to show that in a documentary style film. That's going to move forward, and partnered with ACES and the Department of Commerce team on that to really help us move forward and show, because they really haven't had a great video to show aviation aerospace to the public in Oklahoma, and that's the end goal with the Nick Coleman filming. And Paul and I think we did a pretty good job down there in Ada the other day. So beautiful terminal building that we constructed several years ago. And then after Paul and I were interviewed, they went on to visit Tim Roll in GAMI there at Ada. So had a couple of good interviews. We followed that on with the Governor's Hope Summit. As you heard Secretary Gatz speak about the award, that's where we got the award, was at the Governor's Hope Summit, where hope is not a wish. Hope is something that we can tie into, and that's change and hope for change. It's really good. It really was. It was kind of awe-inspiring, and all these governors' retreats have been. They always bring a theme to the retreat, and this one was probably one of the ones that hit home the most. We talked about hope and focused hope. How do we bring our staff and the employees in state government, how can you use hope as a strategy to move your mission forward for the citizens of Oklahoma and the general public? Several of us went down to the Durant Airport and visited there on June 24th, and visited with the airport. They, as you all know, have become, I believe it's the 13th longest runway in the state, with their extension to 6,800 feet, which just wrapped up a couple of years ago. They are now seeing an extreme influx of interest and activity and development and just users of the airport, obviously thanks to the 6,800-foot runway, but also thanks to what the Choctaw Nation is doing with their casino right next door to the airport, as well as the expansion of the DFW Metroplex. They are benefiting from that expansion of DFW northbound on the state highway, or the U.S. highway right there, and it's just amazing. It's amazing what's going on there in the city of Durant. So we were going down there. We visited with the mayor, another council member, several city officials, the airport, the university, the tribe, and obviously our Department of Commerce and our ACES friends on how can we put our best foot forward. They're about to embark on a detailed planning effort in figuring out how they can best develop all the available land, because as Commissioner Conway knows, they have a lot of developable land out there at the airport. And now that they have a 6,800-foot runway, they're going to become a prime economic development asset for southeastern Oklahoma. And I really look forward to seeing what Durant has to hold. This is one of those times that we were double booked, and so I stayed at Durant, and we talked about the things that could go on at Durant, and a couple of other staff moved on to the Skydio demonstration at Choctaw Nation, which I know was a a provider of UAS services, and the Choctaws are looking to integrate some of the technology they have, but I think the staff got to have some fun and enjoy a little drone flying remotely. Nick, you want to talk a little bit about what you guys did out there at the Daisy Ranch?
Certainly. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Skydio demonstration down there at Daisy Ranch was actually much more exciting than I would have anticipated. I've seen a lot of drone demonstrations over the past few years, and this one probably took the cake. Their main focus is on automation. So as the drone that you can see in the picture there, that's their larger of two sizes of drones. What they actually had us do there was they let us take the controls and said to fly it in anything you can, try to hit a tree. And so it was to demonstrate the AI that is a part of those drone systems so that it can be used in very tight spaces. For instance, as Secretary Gatch would appreciate, for bridge inspections, a lot of times you can't use drones under there because downward-facing cameras, running into different types of support systems. This camera can go fully up, fully down. It's also, even if you're piloting it yourself, the AI keeps you from running into things. Now, if you're going at full speed, it's not going to detect that if you're going at 60, 70 miles an hour, that type of thing. But in those types of environments, it keeps your drone safe so you can get your data and those types of things. They also have, they demonstrated some 3D modeling. So actually, while we're out there, just behind there, you can see a little blue building. It's basically the same as that white one there. But they actually 3D modeled that in about 5 minutes. They set up 4 different points, the floor and the ceiling, and then they 3D modeled the whole thing so that you could put that in your system to say, here's the volume, here's the type of materials we would need to recreate this structure. And they did that all, like I said, within about 5 minutes, that data was ready to go. And then one of their most exciting demonstrations they did was actually with their smaller drone, but it comes in basically a little box, and they call it their dock. It's a remote docking station, and you can fly it from anywhere as long as you have an internet connection. So while we're in that white trailer there, we were able to fly a drone that was located in California in one of their warehouses that they use for security purposes. So you can house that in a dock. You can remotely launch it while you're sitting here in Oklahoma, fly it around, take a look at whatever you want to for whether security purposes, whatever the case may be, inspection purposes. One of the big things that they're looking to sell it to is power lines or railway companies. There's actually some exciting announcements to come from that I'm not sure that they've done a full PR release on that yet, but keep a lookout for that because they have done some excellent work with the FAA as well as some companies across the U.S. to make sure that this gets implemented in a practical way in the very, very near term. And so whereas they can do it right now inside, in the very, very near term, they're going to be able to do that outside as well in some specific corridors. So a lot of exciting things that we got to see as a part of that demonstration. Thank you, Director.
We followed on the Durant Fund in southeastern Oklahoma. We had a meeting with Secretary of Commerce, new Secretary of Commerce, Scott Mueller, discussed our partnership that we have in operating the ACES program between us and the Department of Commerce, and how can we better use our resources together, being the traditional aviation aerospace agency versus the ACES program being the economic development and the business development and industry relation arm for aviation aerospace, and had some good conversations, some good strategies on how we can move forward and better partner as two organizations that are trying to lift up and bring forward the aviation aerospace industry. Had the OAOA general membership meeting. Was not able to go to that, but I know had several staff that did. That was the first Airport Operators Association meeting since the in-person meeting since the pandemic had ended. I know there are a lot of airports that were excited to get together and discuss all the issues that were becoming airports, both in the pandemic and pre-pandemic, and so I know they enjoyed that on July 8th. And then last but not least, I just returned from the AAAE National Airports Conference yesterday afternoon. We had our U.S. Contract Tower Association Policy Board meeting, as well as several other good meetings that were ongoing. I will tell you, discussion has already begun for the next FAA reauthorization bill. As you know, we're currently in a 5-year bill, blessed with a 5-year authorization bill that runs out in FY 2023. And so we have a couple of years, but the negotiations, the moving into place and putting your foot in where you want it to be in terms of your priorities and what you're going to be advocating, lobbying, and suggesting it's already happening. And so that's all. It was good to hear that, good to know where airports are sitting in terms of their advocacy piece. And so at the end of the day, I think that's going to help us as an organization, help airports, and help our national association, NASAO, position itself and make sure that we are going to have our priorities addressed in the next big FAA reauthorization bill when that comes up. And that's it for my director's report. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I'll stand for any questions.
Sounds like you've been busy. Okay. Questions or comments? Let's go on to airport dedications.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Airport dedications, we've had some amazing airport dedications, and I've told this to Secretary Gatz many times, but I want to say it publicly. Thank you to our staff and the work that they've done, but also thank you to the staff of the Department of Transportation, the Turnpike Authority, for all the efforts they've done to put on these events. This is we've completed our fourth one. We did Bristow last summer, which I know you all know about. We followed that on with South Grand Lake earlier this spring. And then we had Skiatook, as you can see here, as well as the next one we'll discuss, Ponca City, which happened just fairly recently last Friday. But Skiatook was a great event, $2 million project to totally reconstruct a 3,000-foot runway. Smaller airport, but very big in the hearts of members there in the town of Skiatook. We had a great showing, probably 150, 200 people. The governor, as you can see there, spoke. The gentleman standing to his right was the gentleman who had the hangar and that airplane that you see there in the picture. It was pretty amazing. I know Commissioner Rainey flew in. Commissioner Putnam did fly in successfully and landed safely. So a few minor issues, but it was a great event and wonderful time to cut a ribbon on that brand new runway. And what we're trying to do with these kinds of events is lift up aviation aerospace and promote it and use this as a tool to share the good things that we're doing. And I know Sandra knows this best, that the message of OAC has improved so tremendously in the last 4 or 5 years, due in large part thanks to what Sandra's been doing for social media, for our media presence, for our press releases, so on and so forth. But these events, gets into the hearts and the minds of the community members and really shows them what the airport is. It's not just about OAC. We're trying to connect the airport to the community and make the community aware of the airport and appreciative of the airport at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, if we're the only ones singing the song or playing in the band and the community's not there, a partner in that, it's going to be really tough to be successful and do what we need to do for moving our airport system forward for the next 20 years. We followed on Skiatook with Ponca City last Friday. Had a great event, probably 200, 250 people in the old ConocoPhillips 66 hangar up there on the north end of the field. Had a great backdrop, huge American flag, nice business jet, a couple of smaller handmade fabric-winged aircraft as well. The microjet, which you can see there, the little green jet, the biggest little jet in the fleet, was there and did a little flying for us, and thank you to Colonel Lewis for bringing that up. I think most importantly, beyond how excited everybody was for the airport, I think everybody was excited for some Mexican food. I think you all know that's in the hearts and minds of every aviator in the state of Oklahoma, is getting up to Ponca City and going to Enrique's and having some Mexican food there at the airport. And so I joked, but it was also being serious in my speech at the event, that I usually get calls when runways are closed for reconstruction and complaints. So I've never received as many complaints during the Ponca City year-long closure, because by golly, those pilots wanted to get their Mexican food and they were unhappy. So, but good news is they won't have to close that runway down for that length of time for at least another 30 or 40 years. So we should be good to go. And it really was an amazing event. And I can't say thank you enough to our staff and the staff of the Strategic Communications Department for helping us put on these events. And we'll continue to do so and put these on as projects get completed and as we believe there's some notable needs. So encourage you all to attend these if you can. We'll try and give you as much advance notice as possible, but would love to have you out there and participate in some of these ribbon cuttings and some of these ceremonies.
Okay, item 10, aviation aerospace education update.
I'm not going to say a whole lot on this one. Let Paula talk, but I can tell you if I've been busy, Paula's been just as equally busy spreading the good news of aviation aerospace education across the state and some of the things that she's been doing. So Paula, would you come on up?
Thank you, Director. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm happy to report some very positive news about aviation education, aerospace education in Oklahoma. As I mentioned in our last meeting, we've been working very diligently to make school systems and the public aware of the AOPA High School You Can Fly aviation curriculum. Last year, this past school year, there were 16 school districts in Oklahoma who taught the aviation curriculum, which is a 9th grade through 12th grade based curriculum. And I'm happy to report midwinter to March, April through March and April, I did as much visitation as I possibly could to school superintendents in the state to let them know about the curriculum. And I'm happy to say that we, for next year, have 33 schools approved by AOPA to teach the high school curriculum. Commissioner Rainey asked me at the last meeting, did I know anything about how implementation would work with homeschools? And so I visited with AOPA and got information about that. As it turns out, it's very easy. And I will be able to work, Commissioner, with homeschool consortiums that are interested in moving forward with that. I'm just so pleased that this number will help us move forward in building aviation education in Oklahoma. Secondly, I'm very happy and glad to report that we had 57 grant applications for our aviation grant program this year. That's a tremendous increase. I truly believe the increase goes hand in hand with the work that we have done in visiting with schools, because when we go to talk to them about the AOPA curriculum, we also talk to them about our grant program. It's very easy for a superintendent to open his door to me when I say, we have some grant funds available. And you know what's been fun for me is that the number of phone calls I've received from schools saying, hey, would you help us with our 5th grade? What could our 5th graders do in aviation? What can our other, our smaller children, our pre-K, our K, will you work with us on that? And it's a delight for me to be able to do that. So right now, the staff has been working through the 57 applications. We'll finalize our recommendations this week, and those will be brought to you in the August meeting. I'd like to thank the staff so much for helping me. Again, this was a tremendous increase. Michelle Boziden, in particular, boots on the ground, in helping us have these recommendations ready to go out this week and then to you in August. Thirdly, we held our first Aviation Education Summit in northeastern Oklahoma. Blue Jacket High School, a small school north of Veneta, hosted us in June on the 22nd, and we were able to talk about aviation education to about 60 folks in attendance that day. Many of them were school superintendents. We had legislators. We had ACES, Department of Commerce, the Oklahoma Department of Career Tech, all in attendance. And Blue Jacket did such a beautiful job of opening their doors to us to allow us to tell our story and the importance of education, STEM aviation education to the students, whether they're rural schools or large metropolitan schools. It's important that they know what's available to them. So we were able to share. And since that time, we've been working. We'll be in Lawton at a summit that we're hosting on the 23rd of July. Also have plans this month to visit with some folks in Duncan about establishing a summit. This morning, we talked more about perhaps going to Guyman. So the excitement of being able to tell this story has been a joy for me. I want to thank Sandra in particular for helping me and helping us put these summits together. It's no easy task, but to get superintendents and everybody in the room at the same time is very, very helpful. On June 29th, Director Arties and I visited Jake Manis and 3 industries in Bristow. And what was interesting about that, it was sort of a flipped model in that the industries, Consolidated Turbine Specialists, Vertical Aerospace, and PASS MRO, said, can we visit about this and then we'll visit with our schools? Let's talk about what industry can do in bringing aviation education forward. I love that. I mean, because if they're willing then to work with our schools, and that's what I found has happened. Our industry folks are extremely willing. And so that was a very positive meeting. We'll be going back and talking to the Bristol Public Schools and the area schools as well, and what they can do to build workforce, basically. And finally, you may have heard a little bit about a very new, hot-off-the-press curriculum called Choose Aerospace. It is a technical maintenance curriculum. Much like AOPA is a pilot UAS curriculum, the Choose Aerospace is a technical maintenance curriculum. It's developed for juniors and seniors, and it's high school as well. This coming year, it will be field tested. 2 schools in Oklahoma will be field test schools for the Choose Aerospace curriculum, and then the following year, it will roll out to all schools in the nation. The only difference, or right now, the main difference with Choose Aerospace is that there is a cost involved. The AOPA curriculum is free. Any school that wants to offer it, all they have to do is apply with AOPA. The Choose Aerospace technical curriculum does have a cost, but Director Arties and I've visited many times about, what does it look like? Can industry help schools perhaps cover the cost to be able to offer this coursework to juniors and seniors? Ideally, in my dream world, it would be that schools would offer not only the AOPA curriculum, but the Choose Aerospace curriculum as well, and give students as many choices as possible. So again, I think all of this is very positive news. It's been a joy for me to be able to help move this forward, and obviously stand for any questions you might have on any of those things.
Well, thank you very much. What is the source of the Choose Aerospace technical curriculum? Where's it come from?
Clemson University has developed it along with the Association for Career and Technology Education. And I don't know how, probably about 2 years in the making, in the development of the curriculum right now. But I believe that Mid-Dell and Green Country Career Techs will be the 2 schools that will be field testing that curriculum.
Okay. What is the cost? Is it per student, per curriculum?
Yes, it's about, what did they say, Director? 200 per student. So if you have a class of 20, you're talking, and it's yearly, it's not a one-time cost.
Right.
So it's much like buying textbooks, except it's fairly costly.
Okay. Any other concerns, questions?
Yeah, excellent work on that. That's exciting that high schoolers will be exposed to aviation. And I feel like kind of the younger generation, unless you have a family or friend that was in aviation, sometimes it can be kind of intimidating, or you don't know how to get started. And then by the time, you reach college age, maybe it might be too late to pursue that. So that's exciting that they'll have opportunity early on.
It is, and it's very exciting for me to watch that happen.
Awesome.
It really is.
We're really excited to have you on board doing this.
Thank you. Thank you very
you're doing
much.
a great job. Okay. Legislative congressional regulatory update.
Yes, sir. Won't belabor too much of this, but there is one piece I would like to really highlight. So legislative session this year was a good one, really good one for OAC. At the May meeting, we talked about the 2 bills that had passed to that point in time, the ODOT bidding system allowing our projects to be used for the ODOT bidding system, as well as our UAS clearinghouse status of the OAC becoming a clearinghouse organization for the state when it comes to UAS, to help us organize and integrate all the assets that are involved in UAS in the state to helpfully launch us forward to go after and really attract and become a player in this industry. We've been a player for many years. We've kind of slowly kept our pace while other states may have been increasing, and so we want to get back onto the launching upward fashion for UAS industry. We've got some great entities in the state doing some great things. OSU, I know some of our law enforcement organizations are doing some great things. We have tribes doing great things in Oklahoma when it comes to UAS, and so we just want to be able to make sure that we're there and can help the state move forward and be that footing and that foundation for the UAS industry. We had the engineer tax credits, the fix that I know you all have heard many times, going back to former Director Byrd and the engineer tax credits, which is OAC's probably most signature piece of legislation passed in 2008. As we knew, if someone from an international destination had gotten their bachelor's degree in engineering, came to the United States, got their master's from OU or OSU, but the master's program itself was not ABET accredited, the tax commission was clawing back those tax credits from those individuals that had claimed them. And it was giving the industry in Oklahoma a little bit of a black eye, because all these people were coming here with the promise that they could claim the engineer tax credits, and they were getting clawed back. And so for about 2 years now, we had worked pretty hard to try and get that language corrected, get some clarifying language added in that would ensure that if someone did get a master's degree and the program was ABAT accredited, regardless if it was bachelor's, master's, or PhD, if the program was accredited, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, aerospace engineering, civil engineering, then that qualified you for the credit. And so that passed was a very big deal for what was probably the state's #1 aviation aerospace incentive. That's the best quiver that Commerce has that's aviation aerospace specific when they go out and they're trying to recruit companies to come to the state of Oklahoma. So it was important that we got that right, and important that we didn't have a black eye on that particular tax credit anymore. And obviously the most important piece is the $2 million appropriation that the Aeronautics Commission received for fiscal year 2022. We've been trying to get an appropriation at the agency since we had received the Oklahoma Aerospace Institute and the CADSCU Center for Aerospace and Defense Supplier Quality Programs back in the 2007 and 8 time period, before my time. And I know, going back to the historical records, it looks like it's back to the early 90s or even maybe the late 80s since we'd gotten an appropriation. And that's something we can be very proud of. I can't take sole credit for that. There's been a lot of people that have worked on that. A lot of hard work and effort went into it over the years, advocating that the agency needs additional funds for programs, for airport infrastructure, for aviation aerospace education, whatever the issue may have been. But it's an important one for us. This is allowing us to invest more into airport infrastructure and do some really good things for lifting up the airport industry, which can serve and in turn be a great economic development tool for the entire aviation aerospace industry. You know, from our economic impact study, we had 440 companies that are considered on airport that use aviation, direct aviation, air transportation on a regular basis. They need those access. They need that access to the National Air Transportation System. And so it was really important and really exciting when we received this, because we've been working so many years, thanks to our airports and the Airport Operators Association, AOPA, the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, EAA, NBAA, National Business Aviation Association, the Agricultural Aviation Association. I could go on and list many associations that have supported us in our efforts to get more funds over the years to reinvest into infrastructure in the state. And it's been a team effort, and I'm very glad that we're able to do that this year. The $2 million that's coming to us, we hope to invest back into vertical infrastructure, particularly the hangars, and we'll talk about that here in a later agenda item. But it's something that you all can be proud of too, because I know each one of you has worked very hard up in the legislature, advocating for, discussing the importance of our organization, the aviation aerospace industry, and our airports as a whole. I also want to say thank you to the legislature and to the governor for supporting us. Thank you to the pro tem and the speaker. Thank you to the chairs of the appropriations budget committees, and a special thank you to Senator Racino, who's been one of our greatest and closest advocates on this issue, but on many aviation aerospace issues, who was a dog in the fight to make sure that we got the money that we needed to be able to invest in their infrastructure and move aviation aerospace forward. So thank you to you all, thank you to the public, thank you to our state's leaders, and I will stand for any questions on any of those legislative topics.
Questions? Okay. Moving on.
Moving on to the congressional update. As I mentioned at the AAAE conference, we are already starting to talk about what's next, what's coming next in the FAA reauthorization bill. The two things that were on the most topic mind this year was some of our rescue and relief money that's come to airports. We know about the American Rescue Plan, or we call it ARPA. We know about the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, or what we call CRISA. Both of those numbers have come out. The total number of investment from CRISA for the state of Oklahoma was $15.2 million. General aviation airports in the state of Oklahoma, if you're a basic category, you got 9,000, local category 13, regional 23,000, national 57,000, contract towered airports also got an additional $34,000. Our two primary commercial airports, Lawton and Fort Sill, each got about $1 million. Will Rogers got 6.4 and Tulsa International 5.5 million. Those projects or those funds, those grant applications are currently in process. I know FAA is sending out offers right now for those particular funding metrics and obviously trying to wrap that up before they head into the American Rescue Plan Act process. So American Rescue Plan Act, $36.8 million to the state of Oklahoma. Basic airports got 22,000, local 32, regional 59, and national $148,000. Lawton and Stillwater each received approximately $1.2, $1.3 million. Will Rogers got 17.8, and Tulsa International got 13.8. Obviously, all these relief monies were very needed to sustain operations at these airports. There's a lot of debt, especially at the commercial airport level, that was incumbent upon getting passenger facility charges and walking through the door and people walking through the door and paying those PFCs, and those weren't happening anymore during COVID. Now we are starting to see the uptick. We're getting back to close to levels on recreational traffic, but we're still not there on business traffic. Business traffic, as we all know, is one of the driving forces for the bottom line of airlines, and I'm hopeful that here in the next year or two we will get back to where we were in 2019. Recreational travel, I think, is going to be there in a lot of respects. It's the business travel we're going to have to watch out for. Is that going to come back? Is that going to make it back? So those are the two things that I would mention to you on the congressional effort. We've got some money. We're hoping that we're trying to convince airports that here's how you need to use the money, use it as expeditiously as possible. And we are working with communities all across the state to make sure they draw down those monies on a routine basis. I'll stand for any questions on that item.
So this is a one-time good deal?
This is a one-time deal.
Yeah, so we
Yep.
need to husband that carefully.
Yep.
All right.
Lastly, on the regulatory update, UAS rules for recreational flyers. In June of this year, FAA announced that the UAS pilots must hold a certificate of completion for the recreational UAS safety test, or as we know it, TRUST. So anybody that's going to be flying a drone, whether for recreation or whatever you want to do, you're going to have this trust certificate. And that's important. We've been trying to spread that message out to people here in the state in this new role of us being the UAS clearinghouse. And FAA's got some great, flyers. I think we've created our own flyer. Sandra created our own flyer for us to get the message out to the public that, yeah, trust is important and you must be able to pass that little test regardless of your age, regardless of what you're flying. It's free. That is the good news, but you must do it. And you must do it to be able to fly in the National Airspace System. Thomas, is there anything you'd want to add to that?
I believe you covered it.
All right. Questions?
No? I think we can move on. Item 12.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is our standard OAC, ODOC, and other Oklahoma public and private entity partnership to go to the National Business Aviation Association Convention this year, partnership up to $5,000. Staff recommends approval, and I'll stand for any questions or comments.
We've been doing this year after year, I assume.
We've been doing this every year since about 2018 and about every other year since before I came here.
Okay. Any questions? Entertain a motion for approval.
Move to approve. Second.
Call a roll, please.
Commissioner Potter,
Aye.
Commissioner Conway,
Aye.
Commissioner Ortega,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you.
Next item on the list is Oklahoma Municipal League Conference. Oklahoma Municipal League is one of our closest partners. Obviously, a majority of the airport operators in the state are owned and controlled by municipalities. So before you today is an opportunity to exhibit at the 2021 OML Annual Conference for $250. We've been doing this, Mr. Chairman, for every year since I can remember, going back to my time here at the commission. So staff recommends approval, and I'll stand for any questions.
Questions? It sounds affordable.
It-
Okay. Entertain a motion for approval.
We are getting the government rate.
Motion made.
We have a motion. We have a
Second.
Okay. Call a roll, please.
Commissioner Potter,
Yes.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
Commissioner Ortega.
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey.
Aye.
Chairman Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Okay, financial report, Mr. Wadsworth.
Morning, Chairman, Mr. Commissioners. Starting with the financial summary document, as of June 30th, which was the end of our fiscal year 2021, Commission had an ending cash balance of $6 million, the encumbrances totaling about $3.5 million, leaving us with an unencumbered cash balance of $2.5 million. Outstanding reimbursements totaled $1.5 million, and total expenditures during the last fiscal year were $7.3 million. Total statutory revenue collected for May was $274,579, and June was $509,655. So total statutory revenues, Sandy, if we go to the next slide, for FY21 totaled $5.3 million, which compares to $4.6 million for FY20. So if you remember, in January, February, our revenue was down about 40%, and we actually ended up being up about 115% compared to the previous year. So quite the remarkable turnaround over the last 6 months. Certainly sets us out as a good starting point, so we go into FY22. I do want to mention here, not included in those figures, we did receive another $1.5 million in coronavirus relief funds from the state. If you'll remember, we received the first one at the last commission meeting, briefed you guys about. We received an additional $1.5 million for a total of $3 million. So we certainly appreciate that contribution. And then finally, as far as FY21, compared to the 3-year average, we ended the year up about $700,000 above what our 3-year average revenue was. So again, just reemphasizes how good that last quarter was for as far as revenue collections. I'll pause briefly there if you guys have any questions regarding FY21 before we preview the FY22 budget.
Well, it sounds like we can't depend on that windfall next year, so we,
Yeah, the coronavirus relief funds were one time. That $3 million was one time. The extra revenue was tied almost exclusively to aircraft excise tax, and we all know that's a month-to-month deal
Certainly.
that we see what's deposited in the account. So just for a little bit of information, of course, our cap on that's $4.5 million. We ended up with $4.2 million for the fiscal year, so
Okay.
pretty close, but not quite to it. Okay. For FY22, that did begin on July 1st. We had our budget approved by OMES on June 29th. So we've had very little disruption transitioning right into the new fiscal year. We did project revenue for, next slide, Sandra, $8.7 million for this fiscal year. Expenses at 10.8, and as I mentioned earlier, we did begin the year with $6 million in our account to start out with. Of our budget expenses, $9.5 million, or about 89% of our budget, is related to the airport construction program. $469,000 for aviation education and $859,000 for administrative, operating, and IT expenses. The $10.8 million total budget is about $3.5 million more than what our FY21 budget was for. That's tied almost exclusively to the airport construction program. Grayson mentioned the $2 million appropriation we got, and then the extra revenue we had there towards the end, being able to put that back into airport projects as well. So, again, this year the budget, I think, shows that we're being responsible with the taxpayer dollars and our focus on the core mission of OAC, having 89–90% of our budget directly to the airport construction program. We're doing our best to fulfill our core mission. So I will stand for any questions that you might have.
questions or comments? Sounds like we're meeting the mission. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, item number 15 is a hangar grant/loan program discussion. Just wanted to start this topic today. We'll have more time to discuss it in future commission meetings. But I think Commissioner Conway may have been the only one on the commission when we started up our terminal program back in 2009. We had a 50-50 grant. At that time, it was $275,000 max contribution from OAC. We are now at $500,000 max contribution. But given this $2 million that we've gotten from the legislature, when we were going around from office to office, one of the things that airports were mentioning, one of the things that we've mentioned, one of the things that all the trade associations are mentioning is the glaring need for hangar facilities and vertical infrastructure at airports. And as we all know, traditionally, FAA has not funded vertical infrastructure. There are the occasional NPE-only project at a small airport may be able to get a bay of T-hangars constructed or a small couple of box hangars constructed, but that's more outside the norm. That's more a rare occasion for that to happen. In fact, I can count that happening in one hand in terms of hangar construction. We know hangars are in dire repair all across the state. We know that there are continuing requests coming in the Department of Commerce for new businesses wanting to come into the state, for new aircraft that are wanting to come into the state to just be located because it's not an aviation business, but they have a jet, they have a business jet, and they want to come to a town and they want to relocate. And so one of the things that resonated the most with the legislature when we were going around from office to office was the need for this hangars, for the hangars and vertical infrastructure. So before you today, I just want to talk about it, get your all's thoughts, at least start getting you to think about what a hangar program would look like, because we're going to have to move on this fairly quick to be able to grant this out here in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months. We have researched some other states and what they have done, and one of the thoughts is we would offer up either a grant or a loan program to a particular sponsor. The grant would be a smaller grant, so it would be like a 30%, 30-70 kind of a proposition, and our grant would be to allow the sponsor to go get traditional financing or to go get other grant programs, and we kind of provide that seed funding, that 30% seed funding to start them off with so they can go out and get a loan or bond it or go after some other more revenue-centric grant programs that are out there and available that are not specific to aviation or aerospace infrastructure. Or the loan program, which would be a higher percentage, so we're thinking a 60 or 70% of the total cost of a hangar with a very low interest rate loan, maybe a 1.5 or 2% interest rate. And that's something that we have talked about internally as to what the interest rate would look like. We're thinking maybe like a 10-year payback period. And that would be coming back to us, and then we get to reinvest that as that money came back to us, hopefully into more hangars as we go on down the road. But these are things that we're probably going to send out to airports here in the next couple of weeks once we get back from Oshkosh and say, hey, if this is the framework of the program we're wanting to stand up, and we did this just similar with the terminal program that we stood up in 2009, who would want to participate? Can you participate this year, or would you want to participate in a future year? And how do we go about that? And so those are the initial thoughts that we are having, and I'll bring Nick up here. He can kind of tell you about some of the research that he did with some other states. But those are the initial thoughts in the general framework of what we're kind of thinking about. And so just information only today. We will eventually have to do rules. When we stood up the terminal grant program, we didn't immediately have to do rules. Our statutory authorization allows us to provide financial assistance by grant or loan or both to any airport here in the system in our state. So, Nick, you want to talk to him about some of the other states that we were able to model after?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. We sent out a request to the National Association of State Aviation Officials. We talk about NASAO all the time, but for our viewers, I want to make sure everybody knows who I'm talking about. They have an option to ask NASAO, and so we can send out a question to all the state aviation officials across the country to see what others are doing. And many of these percentages and ideas that have come from what other states are doing. So just to give you a brief rundown, Mississippi has a loan program with a 1% interest rate and a 10-year payback. They're able to filter in $1 million annually to this program, and they do it every year. And then, of course, they bring back whenever they get the payback and the interest payments, they lump that all back into it and keep it a revolving fund. In Montana, they are able to give $350,000 annually into their program. They do it at 1/2 of the prime rate as it stands on January 1st of that calendar year. And this is in addition to their standard $2 million a year grant program, which is very similar to our ACP that we do here at the Commission. And so they do a little bit more. They offer a grant program, but in the same vein as their normal construction program, whereas our idea would be to modify that a little bit so that they can get some additional funding elsewhere. So that comes into play with that 30% grant that Director Arties was mentioning in terms of our idea. That way that other funding can go to the other projects like they normally do over the course of business. In California, they have the airport loan program that started off with $1 million in funding, and they again put that capital and interest payments back into that. Their term is 17 years, and they base theirs off of the latest state bond pricing. In Wyoming, they have a 5% loan, up to 30-year payback. What they have found is that high interest rate that they have set unfortunately leads to very few requests. So that's why we want to bring that down a little bit, so, because we want folks to be a part of this, because we want to see the infrastructure grow across the state. And in Washington, they have a loan program. They have received 2 rounds of $5 million funding. They've put into this. They do theirs at 2% interest with a 20-year payback period. And their cap is at $750,000 per project on that. And finally, Missouri, they have a variable competitive rate, so it depends on the request that they get in. And so they make it competitive across the state, say, okay, what do you need? How much do you need? Here's the percentage we can give you. So theirs is a little bit different, and then they do that at a 10-year payback period. So I don't know how their success has been, but the ones that have a set rate that is where you can anticipate and plan for what you might have to pay back and over what term seems to be a lot better. And I stand for any questions.
You mentioned that the sponsor in this case, we're talking municipalities?
Usually municipalities.
So we're going to help fund municipalities build hangars?
Yes.
And they're going to charge
municipalities and-
rent or lease on these hangars?
Yeah.
Okay.
Director, if you have anything to
This
say.
doesn't apply to private airports, right?
Say it again, Commissioner.
It's not available to private airports?
Just airports that are in the current systems, the 108 airports that we have available to us today. So the 4 general aviation, or 4 commercial and the 104 general aviation airports that we have.
I know there's a lot of community involvement, that might be the right phrase, when you go to build a hangar at an airport, because it's not your hangar if you buy it. It ends up being the city or counties. So that's been a deterrent to many aircraft owners to not build a hangar or seek a hangar elsewhere. So, okay. Well, there is a hangar shortage for sure.
That's what we've seen, and obviously kind of our priority goals as we were looking, if we get all these requests coming in, we expect to get more requests than we'd be able to grant out or loan out in terms of money. The highest priority are our businesses, aviation businesses that are wanting to come into airports and driving additional jobs in that particular community. Then beyond that would be large general use hangars that are going to be supporting bigger aircraft. And then obviously at the bottom of the priority list is probably going to be smaller T hangars or smaller box hangars. And so obviously we want to be able to tie this money back into jobs, improving the economic development opportunities that these airports can provide, so on and so forth.
Okay. Questions, comments? All right, thank you. Moving on to the Airport Construction Grant Program.
Commissioners, just as a point of clarification, I know it's been a minute since we've done a consent docket, but if anyone wants to pull out these grants and vote on them individually, or just pull out one and vote on them individually, you are welcome to do so. Please just indicate which one, and we will move forward with that process.
Thank you, Director. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner. We have 4 projects for construction grant program this year, this time. The first project is at Ardmore Municipal Airport, and the project consists of rehabilitating the runway 1331 and installing new LED runway lights. Based on the bid that we have, the total project cost is over $1.8 million, and it will be funded with over $942,000 of FAA fund, over $735,000 of state grant fund, and shy of $105,000 of ARPA, which is American Rescue Plan Act, and about $39,000 of sponsor matching. We have Mr. Dan Luttrell from airport. He's the airport manager at Ardmore. He may have some word.
Chairman, Commissioners, on behalf of Ardmore Municipal Airport and the Development Authority, I want to thank you for your continued support of our community and our airport and everything that we're doing in Ardmore. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I'm standing for any question you may have.
The year, we're looking at starting construction on this when?
Mr. Chairman, if they can get the crew mobilized, that would be probably later this fall. It's, we have bids in hand. We have the OAC grant, provided you all approve that. The FAA grant would be shortly coming thereafter. if they can get contracts in place, hopefully this can get started this fall, because it's not asphalt, this is concrete, so, and it's just repair and joint seal. So, I don't know the date, I don't know the times involved, but I would think that this would be able to be done hopefully before Christmas or at least early next year.
Okay. Thank you.
The second project that we have is at Boise City Airport, which consists of a runway rehab and installing LED runway light. And based on the bid that we have for this project, the total project cost is shy of $1.9 million. And it will be funded with $1,050,000 of FAA fund and over $683,000 of a state grant fund, over $116,000 of ARPA, and about $36,000 of sponsor matching. I'm standing for any question for this project.
Go on.
Next project is at Elk City Regional Airport. The project consists of installing LED runway light, PAPI, AWAS, and flight inspection. Based on the bid that we have, the total project cost is over $976,000, and this will be funded with $487,500 of FAA fund, shy of $405,000 of a state grant fund, and over $54,000 of ARPA, and about $30,000 of sponsor matching. We have Miss Lisa Church from City of Elk City.
On behalf of the City of Elk City and the Elk City Regional Business Airport, I pulled a few numbers. OAC over the last 57 years has contributed over $2 million to our airport. FAA, and combined with local funding, has also contributed over $7.5 million to our airport. This has made a huge difference to a community of about 12,000 people. That's just, you can't even imagine. So it's helped to make Elk City a micropolitan, and we're like the regional hub for retail, and I think our airport contributes to that. So we really do appreciate everything in our relationship with Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission. So thank you, guys.
Thank you for coming.
I'm standing for any question, if you have any. None?
Go ahead.
Last but not least, we have a project at Thomas P. Stafford, Weatherford Airport. The project consists of constructing a new terminal building. If you go to next slide, it is shown in that red spot that you see there. Based on the bid that we have, the total cost of this project is over $1.6 million, and it will be funded with shy of $250,000 of FAA fund, $500,000 of a state grant fund, about $28,000 of ARPA, and shy of $865,000 of a sponsor matching fund. We have Mr. Mike Brown here. He's the mayor of this city.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Director, and members of the commission. On behalf of the City of Weatherford, I just want to thank the OAC for your continued support. Of course, we're taking advantage of the terminal grant program. It's going to be a beautiful facility that hopefully will start construction in the next couple of months, be completed in about a year's time. And I want to be the first to invite you out to be our guest. We think General Stafford will certainly be a part of that. And I think this is going to complement many of you that familiar with the Stafford Air and Space Museum. Has just gone through about an $8 million expansion and improvement, so we think this will certainly be a beautiful asset to go along with that. But just want to say thank you. Our airport manager is flying today, and I'm sure he's going somewhere fun, but sent me instead. But we've got a great relationship with OAC, and as many of you know, my former director, Vic Bird, is now serving on our Stafford Air and Space board, and certainly thankful to have him to be a part of that. So just thank you, and if we can do anything for you, let us know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm impressed by the amount of sponsor funds.
Yeah.
It's the highest I've seen.
How those other people got.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
They shouldn't have.
Okay.
I'm standing for any question you may have, but staff recommends approval for these 4 projects.
I can ask just a general question, though. We've got about 108 airports. I know several years ago was a push to get LED lights. And do you have any idea how many are left that need to be upgraded to LED, roughly?
I would say of the airports that have lighting currently, we're probably 30% left that have to have LED upgrades. Some of those are biggies though. I mean, we're talking like a Westheimer has not been upgraded to LED. But there are some large ones that have. Wiley Post is completely LED. R.L. Jones is completely LED. C.E. Page is not. So we have some big airports. We also have some small airports. But I would say if you're looking at the overall total of airports that have lights today, I'd say we got about 35% left to do.
Well done.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? I'll entertain a motion for approval of all four.
So moved.
Second.
Call a roll, please.
Commissioner Potter,
Yes.
Commissioner Conway,
Aye.
Commissioner Ortega,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Chairman Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it. Go ahead. Yeah. Good morning, Sandra.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we're flying again, and we are excited about that. There is a cheat sheet on your podium there about fly-ins that are occurring this fall. And we have been going to several events. Many of us, Thomas Galloway is on our staff, and he's a pilot, and he goes to several events for us when I am unable to, and also Paula Keaty. And they went down to Chickasha to the air show. And so if you'll look there, the 2021 Fall Fly-In and events, there is the Okie Derby on August 14th at Sundance Airport with the 99s that I'll be attending. And there is the Guthrie Edmond Community Fly-In Day on September 18th. El Reno is having their regional airport fly-in on September 25th. And October 2nd, Max Westheimer is having their 14th Annual Aviation Fest. So we will be attending all of those things, and we look forward to, if anybody wants to go, you're welcome to always call me and tell me that you have time to go. Yesterday, we had Commissioner Rainey with us for the United Dynamics ribbon cutting ceremony. They're moving, they're opening at Leadership Square. Yeah, and so if anyone ever wants to come with me, you're always welcome to do that. And if you know of an event, just let me know. I'll be happy to list it and share it on our social media. And I would yield for questions.
Would this be the place to talk about OAC at Oshkosh?
Certainly would be, Mr. Chairman. We have an amazing little event coming up in north central United States called Oshkosh, Wisconsin. I think everybody's excited to get back there after not having had the event in 2020. Please come to Oshkosh. We have our booth in Hangar C. We also have the traditional luncheon on Saturday with Senator Inhofe and EAA President Jack Pelton. So please come to that at noon. Same tent we've always been in over in Pober Pixie by the pond between the show and the museum. So please come to Oshkosh, attend the Saturday luncheon, and come check us out in Hangar C.
Okay.
I also, sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chairman, but I also wanted to let you know that Women in Aviation Day in Oklahoma has been set. Our event is November 5th. It's actually in statute on December 9th, but we are having it November 5th at AAR in Oklahoma City. And also the Aerospace Forum, which the Aeronautics Commission sits on the steering committee for, is going to be October 28th. If you would like to attend these events, please let me know, and we'll make sure that you get a ticket. And we hope to see you around town this fall. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandra. Appreciate it. Any concluding remarks, Director Artis?
I was only going to mention Oshkosh, and we've already covered that one, so I am good, Mr. Chairman.
I've lost track of the next meeting. I thought it was in September on the 14th.
Well, we have August 11th for our Aero Ed Education Grant meeting.
Ah, okay. August 11th in this room at 10 o'clock. Any other updates or announcements? And any new business that could not have been foreseen within the last 24 hours? All right, I call for adjournment. Thank you for coming. We are adjourned.